And welcome everybody to the CUSA podcast roundtable. It's already, what is it, week 9? My good gosh, the college football schedule goes by so quickly. But we're back, and we have another exciting matchup here. What should be a very competitive game out west. It is the Missouri State Bears going up against the New Mexico State Aggies. So I am Jay Gibson, the host of the Pause Up podcast, and for today, the roundtable, and with me, making his debut for the pregame shows, it is Maddox of the Growl, and making his roundtable debut, it is Isaiah Reed for the bus stop. So, gentlemen, how are you two doing tonight?
Doing great, Jake.
I'm doing great as well. I'm excited to be here today, man.
Is it fair to call this a West-ish matchup in Conference USA? I guess Springfield's not super far out west, but it's pretty west, I'd say, for Conference USA until they add Sacramento State and completely change up the look of the conference once again.
Mm-hmm. Right? I feel like this is the closest. Oh, my bad. I feel like this is as close as it gets to a Western matchup in Conference USA currently, at least.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a potential rivalry there. I mean, both state colleges, both represent the state well, all things considered, and obviously recent members to Conference USA. I'm excited to see how this matchup could shape up in the future between all of these newcomers to the conference, if you will. So let's start off here talking with how the seasons have gone on for both these squads, and well, for both cases, 3-3. So that's exciting already. But we'll start off here with Maddox talking about how this season has gone on for Missouri State. To say it's been a roller coaster is, well, I mean, you go up and down, loss, win. That's just the way it's gone on for Missouri State. But after 73 points given up to USC, tighten up, take down Marshall, and there goes the crazy spiral in what was one of the craziest non-cons we've seen here in a minute. But recently coming off a win over Middle Tennessee in dramatic fashion. Just talk about how the season's gone on for you, Maddox, if you consider it so far a success in your first year here in CUSA.
Man, you hit the nail right on the head, Jake. Backing and advancing, oscillating between the win and loss column. But I do think it has been a success for Missouri State football as a whole. I don't think anybody ever could have imagined that coming into this part of the season, heading into the second half of the year, that the Bears would be favored to win a road game in their first year in CUSA. Not only once, but twice. They were favored to beat Middle Tennessee State in their last game back on October 8th, now favored to beat New Mexico State. And I think that just says everything you need to know about the respect that people now have for this program in its inaugural year in the conference, and how well they performed in the non-conference schedule, especially after a humiliating defeat against the USC Trojans in week 1, 73-13. The defense has picked it up big time, and that's been the biggest storyline of the year. The offense has been disappointing at times, not really what we anticipated. Thought that was going to be the unit that was leading the charge a little bit more. But as a whole, they're just finding ways to win football games, and now they're hoping they can turn that into a winning streak.
Now, Isaiah, who actually used to play for New Mexico State, defensive lineman, spent some years there. It's awesome that we actually have a former player in the roundtable, all things considered. Stacked my boy Kewan Jenkins, but it's all good. It's all good a few years ago. But talk to me about New Mexico State, because you had 3 wins last season, and obviously it was a disappointing year. You've already matched your win total from last season with half of the year to go. You've had a 2-game winning streak, 2-game losing streak. It's been back and forth. You obviously have the CUSA stretch of the season, along with a pretty unfortunate trip to Knoxville kind of knocked in there midway. So just talk about how your season has gone, and if you're fully convinced that this season will be better than last year's, and what will it take in your eyes for this to be a success for the Aggies?
Man, there's honestly a lot of similarities between the Aggies this year and this Missouri State team. As you already said, it's been a lot of highs and lows, and honestly, the way the season started for us was a little rougher on the offensive side, but I feel like the last game, he started to put a couple pieces here together. Unfortunately for us, though, special teams kind of faltered for us a little bit on that end. But all in all, I feel like it has been a large improvement compared to how we were last season. This is Coach Sanchez's first year with his full recruiting class, getting everything settled in. We lost a couple games that I feel like could have went the other way. It was just a couple of different plays going a little, having a little bit different results. But all in all, I'm still excited about the course of this season and where we're heading so far. It just looks like things are building over there in Las Cruces currently, and I'm excited to see that.
I'm definitely excited to see it too, and how New Mexico State pans out in Conference USA. Because with UTEP and La Tech gone, unfortunately, I think New Mexico State's going to be on a bit of an island here in Conference USA. No one really near them. Who knows what the future will hold for there? But so we can talk a bit about the present here. Going back to Maddox here, talking about what makes this Missouri State offense click, and it's kind of a weird instance right now. With the quarterback situation there, because you had a guy in Jacob Clark who has looked pretty good, all things considered, some mixed bags here and there, but has been reliable, first year in FBS, but then you get the injury. You bring in Deuce Bailey, who did just enough to beat Middle Tennessee, 278 yards. Just talk a bit about what in the world is the quarterback situation right now, and who you genuinely want and think will start in this game.
Wow, that's a really loaded question right there, Jake. It's a difficult one to answer, and I think the quarterback position has kind of defined the whole journey that Missouri State has gone on in its first year in CUSA, and I think it's been a journey of uncertainty. And I think at times fans have been very pleased about what they've seen from these two quarterbacks, and at other times maybe they're a little bit more skeptical and they're wondering how they can improve and facilitate this offense in a better manner. As for who I think will go in this contest against the Aggies, it's really difficult to say. It's about as 50-50 as you can possibly get. It was a bit more predictable going into the Middle Tennessee State game that Deuce Bailey was going to be the guy. It seemed like Jacob Clark wasn't as involved in practice, but now his reps are starting to increase. He might be able to go come game time. It will be a true game time decision, as head coach Ryan Beard has said, but it's really going to come down to who he thinks is most prepared to go out and take those snaps. And you might even see a mixture between the two, and that may not be such a bad thing. These quarterbacks, they have different strengths that they bring to the table. Deuce Bailey able to scramble a lot more, kind of fitting into that Lamar Jackson type of a quarterback role. And that works out really well for offensive coordinator Nick Petrino, who coached Lamar Jackson back at Louisville. So I think Nick Petrino really likes having him aboard, but you have to have faith in old reliable as well, Jacob Clark. I mean, he is the quarterback that led this team into this conference and into the FBS, and he's got tons of Missouri State records like we've talked about before on the Conference USA Roundtable. So I think as a Missouri State fan, you have to be happy about whatever decision Coach Beard makes, because both these guys can play and they've both won at this level. I think they can both handle the pressure as well.
Now, Zay, the quarterback situation for New Mexico State is a bit more concrete. Now, I think the style of, say, Deuce Bailey, who was a dual threat sort of passer in that game against Middle Tennessee, compared to Logan, who was more of a stay in the pocket, make some big plays happen kind of guy. So it's been an interesting ride for this New Mexico State offense with, of course, a former FIU offensive coordinator now there over in Las Cruces. Just talk a bit about what makes this offense click in your eyes with the Aggies.
Right now, the Aggies offense 100% runs. It lives and dies by Logan Fife. Logan Fife's had some ups and downs this season, but he's hit on a lot of big plays, and sometimes consistency has been a little bit of an issue. But ultimately, I feel like one of the things we really need to get to, which showed a lot of signs in this last week, was the run game. We can get this run game going and actually start having a foundational run game, then it's going to open up our offense drastically. And going out there and being able to show that we can put the ball on the ground and also still pass the ball, move the ball down the field through the air, I think that's going to really, really show good signs for us throughout the rest of the season as we go, honestly. But it starts with Logan.
I'm just now realizing both of these teams have former FIU personnel. Of course, Yost for New Mexico State running the plays here. And then when it comes to Missouri State, it's your standout back, Shamari Lawrence. So just talk a bit about some of the other playmakers that really make that Missouri State Bears offense click. This is a team that has a pretty solid amount of yards per game all things considered. Decent rushing yards per game, passing. I feel like it's been relatively even mixture. Actually, I'd say it's more of a passing-oriented offense there for the Bears. But still, who are some of the biggest weapons that you think the fellas in Las Cruces need to start worrying about?
Well, Isaiah hit the nail right on the head when he was talking earlier about the similarities between these two teams. And I think the running game is the same way because the Bears, going into the season, it seemed like they had everything they needed to establish a good ground game. And it just hasn't really panned out the way they thought it would. And that's in large part due to lots of injuries that have popped up on the offensive line. Justin Cruz just went down against Middle Tennessee State in the Bears' last game. He should be good to go for this next one against New Mexico State. But I think through it all, Shamari Lawrence, the coaching staff still trusts him. And another back that has emerged a lot is Ramon Green Jr. And I think that's something that not a lot of people expected going into this year. They love using him out of the backfield with the aerial attack, especially. And he's broken off some big time plays so far this year. And one of his biggest ones was against Marshall, the Bears' first win as members of the FBS. And he's just been a special playmaker to have. But on top of that, you got to look at the receiving core. Dash Luke has emerged out of that slot receiver spot. And he's probably the most dangerous receiver on the roster at this point.
Now turning it back over to the Aggies, Zay, I don't mean to get negative here, but 66 and a half rushing yards per game is a big no buenos over there in New Mexico. So just talk a bit about where this offense stands, who you think are the biggest dogs on offense regardless, and what's really been holding back the running game for New Mexico State, at least on paper, more than anything.
Man, honestly, yeah, like you said, it's no secret that it's been a struggle this year for us offensively when it's come to rushing the ball, which honestly, as a former player for the Aggies, it's really hard for me to grasp that and see that, considering that our identity has always kind of been known as a rushing team. But I think a lot of those struggles come from us having a lot of new pieces up front this year. We brought in a lot of transfers, a lot of first-year starters as well. And then, of course, we've had a couple injuries on that offensive line. I believe Malachi Wheeler is going to be activated this week, hopefully. But the dogs on the team, we got a guy named TK King. I'm sure you guys have seen what he's done in these past 2 games, but we were missing him heavily in the first 4 games of the season, and having him back is a huge plus for this team because not only does he bring so much to the offense through the passing game, we've designed a lot of gadget plays specifically just to get him out in space and let him use his athleticism. Then we have Donovan Fappel too out there at wide receiver. And honestly, I still have a lot of faith in the running backs. Like I said, I feel like a lot of the issues was coming from the offensive line, but they showed massive improvements last week. And if we can just keep moving forward with that, keep going up, I think Kadarius Callaway can end up being a pretty decent back throughout the rest of the season.
All righty then. So that's good to know. We turn it back to Maddox as we switch things over now to the defense here. And at least for Missouri State's perspective, it's been decent at times. Obviously, you started off with a that 73-point romp. You turn things around, and you haven't let a team score over 30 the rest of the way. So just talk about, I'm guessing what Missouri State may have looked in the mirror after that loss to USC and how they've been able to sort of steadily turn things around. But what else they really have to get going here towards the conference stretch of the season with the defense?
If you throw out that first game against USC from the defense's perspective, then you have to be more pleased than you ever could have imagined with this unit as a Missouri State Bears fan. I mean, this was the side of the ball that everyone was questioning heading into the 2025 campaign. And I think it lived up to expectations, really, you could say, in that USC game when the fundamentals were not there. The angle tackling, the pursuit, it all just seemed to be falling apart. But then they turn around the very next week and they go on the other side of the country out to the East Coast, take on the Marshall Thundering Herd. And all those issues were seemingly resolved. You had guys stepping up, making plays. This secondary has been unmatched, maybe one of the best secondaries that head coach Ryan Beard has had during his time here at Missouri State. Guys like McGuire, Neal, Christian Ford leading the charge. But the one guy in particular that's the glue that holds this whole thing together is Kanye Young. He's the captain of this defense, and he's doing it all. He's batting down passes, getting in the faces of the quarterbacks that he's going up against. And he's just a superb tackler as well, forcing fumbles. He does it all.
Mm. Yeah, he certainly seems to do it all. Now, again, Isaiah, we need to talk about that New Mexico State defense, which has actually looked quite solid at times this season, whether it's to teams like Tulsa or Sam Houston. You've really put the brakes on a lot of teams that you come across. You don't give up many points per game. Who are some of the biggest players on defense that attribute the most to that?
So on our defense, we got some dogs over there. I really like Ezra Christensen down there at defensive tackle. He's done a great job this season with his pass rush. I believe he has 5 sacks now in the season, or 4.5, and he's been a dog. Not having Tyler Martinez, that hurts us a lot this season because, he was a guy who was projected to be, a group of 5 All-American. But on top of having him, who else? Let me think. I don't know. I just really like the pass rush we've been having. It's been a lot of sacks and as a defensive lineman, that's something that always excites me. Something else that we've done really good this year on defense is we've created a lot of turnovers, forced a lot of takeaways. I feel like sometimes we have a lot of bend, a lot of yards we've been giving up, unfortunately. But I mean, if you bend but don't break, it's hard to really fight against that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And to hear you say that, of all things, definitely does a lot towards describing this New Mexico State defense. It's scary. It kind of makes me happy that FIU doesn't have to deal with them this season. Now, Missouri State, on the other hand, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'll open it up now to a questioner. Whoever wants to go first, by all means. You both have talked about a ton of similarities with this team, including where the strengths of their squads are. What are the biggest weaknesses you feel both squads are entering this game with? And again, whoever wants to go first.
I know this isn't a weakness for New Mexico State, but third down offensively for the Bears has been frustrating, to say the least. They're 135th out of 136 FBS teams in that category, 23.19% success rate on third down. And I think that really could be what this game comes down to, because the Aggies, on the other hand, 48% success rate on third down against FBS opponents. So that should be the key to this game. And there's really no excuse at this point for the Bears offense to continue to fail on that particular down, because they have all the pieces they need. And that was what we talked about all offseason, was how these guys were so ready to go into the FBS, and the success they had last year in the Missouri Valley Football Conference was going to prepare them for that. But it just hasn't really been there. They haven't lived up to those expectations as much as we may have thought. And perhaps the bye week can help out with that a little bit, maybe rest up a little bit, try to figure out how they can adjust some of those issues, because that has been a big issue so far.
Zay, what say you? What would you consider the biggest weakness of the Aggies thus far?
Well, the biggest weakness of the Aggies so far has definitely been, for one, our run game, like we already have spoken on. It's no secret we've had a really rough season rushing the ball. But on top of the run game, just to hit on something else, I feel like our red zone offense has kind of been lacking at sometimes, which, of course, when you struggle rushing the football, that's going to be a problem that also shows up in the run game. Being able to pick up the hard and gritty rush yards. A lot of times we end up getting behind the sticks due to that as well. But like I said with the Liberty game, that was the first time I think I saw us this whole season where we were in situations where we got a 2nd and 6 and then 2nd and 5. When you have situations like that, the whole playbook is opened up.
Yeah. I'll again open it up here. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead. It's interesting. All of us are at the halfway point of the season so far. 6 games down, 6 games to go. Which win out of the 3 would you say is the most indicative of how great your specific team can look when everything's clicking?
For Missouri State, it's got to be the Marshall game. You take a look at the wins that the Bears got other than against the Thundering Herd, and it was against UT Martin, an FCS program, and the other one was against Middle Tennessee State. And even though the Bears won that game, they didn't really play their best football. They made a lot of mistakes, and they were lucky to walk out of Murfreesboro with a victory. So I think that win against Marshall, it really showed what this team can do in moments of adversity because they stepped up. Again, after that humiliating USC loss, had to go to the other side of the country, and I think that was when they had a lot of people questioning them about what they were capable of. They stepped up in a big way. Still lots of mistakes, which I think is encouraging because they really haven't played their best football game yet, I don't think. Turning the ball over, failing to execute in the red zone. We already talked about third down. If they can find a way to fix all those issues, this could be the best team in the conference when they're at their best.
Zay, and I'll open it up to you. I think you have two options, assuming you're not going to pick the FCS game, but you have a really close win against what has turned out to be a dangerous Tulsa team, and then you have a no-nonsense blowout win over Sam Houston. But what's the best which game better describes how great this New Mexico State team can be when everything's working?
That Tulsa win was very impressive. A lot of people didn't have us picked for that game, but I believe that Sam Houston game was probably our most complete game we've played this whole season in terms of our offense and defense both clicking at the same exact time. Of course, like I've already stated, we didn't really do a great job rushing that game. Ironically, the weird part is offensively, I felt like our offense played the most complete game as a total whenever we faced Liberty last week, having, been able to move the ball on the ground and through the air. But in terms of a full body of picture, offense, defense, and special teams, without a doubt, Sam Houston. We weren't even really healthy heading into that game. We came in off a very short week on top of that as well. We were able to go out there and put up 37 points. Anytime you have a game like that, and then also being able to hold them down to only 10 points, it's hard to really complain in that aspect.
I'll bring it back to you here, Zay. Weekday CUSA. You've had a few seasons now to sort of digest it. I believe you even played in it at some points. What are your thoughts on these weekday games?
As a fan, I honestly love it. As a former player, I kind of hated it because it's hard to get prepared for those weekday games. Of course, you already know being a student, you're going to have all type of classes. 1 second, I'm sorry. But you're going to have all type of classes. You're going to have all type of other things going on throughout that week. And then being all the way out there in New Mexico to travel, midweek travel, going all the way across the country is really tough to handle in the middle of the week.
Now, Maddox, you're getting your first taste of weekday CUSA. Things work different here in FBS, let me tell you. But it's definitely what are your thoughts on that? Do you also feel the same struggles? You're a student, so you have to balance this with actual classes you still have to go to.
Yeah, I think it's really going to set in when the Bears have a home Wednesday game next week against FIU. I'm really excited to see what the campus environment looks like on that day in particular. And I know that's been a big discussion leading up to that event with the athletic department here at Missouri State. So that should be interesting. It is a little bit upsetting to me that the environment on Wednesdays isn't the same as what you would see on a Saturday in terms of the energy from the fans and the enthusiasm that people bring to the table. And I think there is a bit of a trade-off there because on the other side, I think the broadcasting part of it, having these games on ESPN2, getting that national recognition, there's a lot of positives that can be drawn from that. So I think it goes both ways, just like it would for anything playing on a different day. It's going to have that different feel to it. And I think it's part of what makes Conference USA what it is. So to be able to stand out in that way is special.
Zay, what's the forecast for Wednesday? Is it going to be hot like a desert?
Honestly, going out there, it's going to be dry. I see people always worry about the heat, but I tell everybody all the time, the thing that most people aren't prepared for usually is having that elevation, man. It's hard to breathe out there when you go out there for the first time, and then being in the desert, not only is it so much thinner with the air, you're also dealing with the fact that it's dry. So a lot of water. If I can give the Missouri State players anything, be hydrated for that game for sure.
Oh, yeah, you're speaking to the soul. I need my humidity down here. I need it to keep going.
Yeah, I actually was just in Florida, so I trust me. I know how humid it gets out there.
Without a doubt. All righty, then. I think we'll start to sort of close up shop here. So I'll ask what I believe is the big one here. I think, Maddox, you alluded to this a little bit earlier. Missouri State is a road favorite. So you're getting points at home if you are the Aggies. I'll just ask this to you first, Maddox. What above anything else does Missouri State need to ensure they do right and ensure they avoid if they want to prove the bettors correct that Missouri State is worthy of getting a win on the road on weekday CUSA?
2 words, Jake. Finish drives. Finish drives, finish drives, finish drives. This team, it seems like every single time they get the ball offensively, they put together some really nice chunk plays, move the ball down the field really well. But then it kind of stalls out when you get closer and closer to the end zone. They've had to rely a lot this year on their kicker, Yusuf Obeid. And I think he's starting to feel some of that pressure because he missed an extra point against Middle Tennessee State. He's not been as reliable as he was last year. And I think this is the point in the season where the offense needs to take some of that weight off of his shoulders and say, we're going to step up and we're actually going to put the ball in the end zone here and make sure that the defense too, which has stepped up in such a monumental way, can kind of take a step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, we don't have to be perfect. And I think if they can do that and the offense can do what it's capable of doing, then this team's going to have a lot more success in the second half of the season. And who knows, if things get crazy, maybe they could potentially make a bowl game. And that's what everybody's pulling for here in Springfield. And that's what everybody knows they're capable of doing. So if they can put the ball in the end zone, finish those drives, that's going to be the number one key.
Man, wow, you said so much there. Maybe we won't even need you for our pause up. I'm just kidding, Maddox, but I will turn it over to you, Zay, and basically ask you the same thing. What does New Mexico State need to do, and what do they need to avoid to make sure to prove the bettors wrong? That at home they deserve to be favored in this game and ultimately get a well needed home win on weekday CUSA.
Yeah, that's number one rule of football. You can't lose at home right there, especially for the fans. But what we need to do for sure is win first downs. We need to continue building off what we did last week, trying to actually rush the ball, establish that run game. And then the most important thing, what all the fans are wondering and wanting to see, is a drastic improvement in the special teams game. We gave up a touchdown in that game on special teams. Muffed punts, all type of things. It just needs to have a huge improvement. So if we go out there and play our brand of football, this is one of those games that honestly it can go either way. And it's going to come down to, like you said, whoever wins third downs and whoever holds on to the ball the longest. No turnovers, turnover-free, mistake-free football. Whichever team can do that the best, I believe, is going to come out with a victory.
Well said there. So all in all, I think all of us can agree this has the makings to be one of those weekday CUSA games that people just don't forget for a while, because we've seen some crazy ones without a doubt so far, and this has the makings of it. So I'll open it up again. Final thoughts from either of you guys as we get ready for this contest.
For me, Jake, I think it has to be about the offense. The defense, like we've talked about so many times already, has done more than enough to help this team succeed. And I know at times we've been hard on the offense, and it's been a little bit irritating seeing them not put more points up on the board. But I think it's also important to remember that they have played better than what their record would suggest. You mentioned how they've been able to rack up so many yards, and their yards per game total is really, really high compared to lots of other teams in this conference. So much so that I believe 14 of the 15 teams below them in the yards per game category average more points than the Bears do in every single game this season. So I think that yard total is finally going to play out in their favor at some point, and there's no better time to have that start than right now, with conference play continuing, the second half of the season right on the horizon. This is where they can step up, and it could be especially the case that they do that if they get Jacob Clark back. Deuce Bailey, though, like I said before, the team's got confidence in him, and he'll be able to show out when the lights are the brightest.
Zay, I'll open it up to you. What do you need the world to know about this game? And also for the fellas from Springfield making the trip down, if there are, what do they need to know about Las Cruces? What to do, what not to do, the food spots, you name it.
I got to tell everybody my favorite food spots. Andale Doghouse. is probably the best Mexican restaurant you can find in all of America. You go there, get your monster-sized burrito. It's going to be the size of somebody's head. You're going to enjoy that. But heading into this game, it's going to be a great one. Like you said, this could honestly end up being a rivalry of the future in Conference USA. Two teams, the two furthest west teams in the conference, and then teams with similar backgrounds currently heading into this season and into this game. So I'm excited, and I'm sure everybody else at home is going to be very excited to watch this. Conference USA's put out a lot of classic games this year, and I'm looking forward to watching more throughout the rest of this year.
All righty then. We'll wrap it up there. Missouri State at New Mexico State, Wednesday at 9 o'clock. If you're not going to be there, it's on CBS Sports Network. Again, part of Weekday CUSA. So to Zay and Maddox, I say thank you, and I say to all of us watching, enjoy some good Conference USA football, because you never know what you're going to get. Good night, everybody.